16, 2020. This meeting of the Planning and Zoning of the City of Eagle Pass, Texas, shall be open and accessible to the public via the following free of charge video conferencing link. 1. www.facebook.com/official City of Eagle Pass, Texas. And for an electronic copy of the agenda packet, go to www.eaglepass.us/agenda center. In light of the ongoing national emergency and an urgent threat to public health caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, members of the public are encouraged to follow the recommendations of government leaders and the CDC regarding social distancing and self-quarantine. Establishment of a quorum. I'm going to call out the names to see who's present. Mr. Mario Escobar.
Here.
Ms. Doris Sanchez.
Here.
Mr. Marcos Villalpando. Mr. Hasso.
Here.
And Enrique Montalvo Villalpando not present. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum to conduct the business. Next item, citizens communications. Do we have any from Mr. Madera? Is there a no?
Any submitted? No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Reading of minutes, what are the wishes of the members present?
Move to
Yes.
approve.
March 16, 2020.
Yes, sir. I move to approve the minutes of 16/2020.
I second.
There's a motion and a second by Mr. Escobar and a second by Ms. Sanchez. Any further discussion, questions, concerns? Hearing none, then everybody say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Public hearing, item number 2. Public hearing on the proposed final replat of Lot 1 in Block 1 of Chorgas Foster Subdivision, Unit 2, and closing of the public hearing and possible action. Mr. Madera.
Yes, Mr. Montalvo, thank you. So the item before you is for a final replat of Lot 1, Block 1, Chorgas subdivision. There will be two very similar. There are two properties being submitted for the same type of replat right next to each other by the same applicant, which is Mountain View Engineering. This first one is located at 2268 El Indio Highway. This final replat is moving to subdivide approximately 4.6 acres into 2 commercial lots. This includes a variance to plat a property less than 5 acres in size that had been conveyed prior to 1984. The main points on this is it is right off of El Indio Highway and at the intersection of Industrial Boulevard, or what's sometimes known also as the truck route. There is a plan for commercial development of this property. It is the zoning of this is B3 general business. And let me see. Because it is a commercial property, we didn't send out letters to abutting properties, but just did the public notification and did not receive any responses in opposition on this item. Does the board have any questions regarding this particular item?
Any questions from members of the board?
Just one, Mr. Montalvo. You mentioned there are 2 properties that are becoming up.
Yes, the next item, item 3, will be almost identical to this item. It's right across the street on the truck route, also on El Indio, so they're right next to each other.
Okay.
We're only discussing item number 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, but I see that they're requesting a variance because it's under 5 acres. But I think they're separate properties. Is that right? They're not together or anything like that.
Yeah, they are separated by the street,
Okay.
the industrial boulevard.
This is Hector Canales, Mountain View Engineering. The one of them is on block 1. The second one is on block 2, so that's why we did it on 2 separate replats.
Okay. No further
Any other
questions.
comments? Any comments from any of the members? Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the portion of the public hearing, and I would like to ask that anybody who's on the line would like to speak in favor or against, please state your name and whether you're in favor or against that public hearing on the proposed replat of Lot 1 and Block 1 of Chorgas Foster Subdivision, Unit 2. Anyone in the audience that wishes to address, may do so now. Anyone in the audience that wishes to address, may do so now. Hearing none, then I will turn it back to the members. What are your wishes in reference to the replat?
I move to approve.
Motion
Yes, sir.
by
Yes.
Tovar. Second, Salinas.
Yes, sir. I approve
Okay.
it.
Okay, any further comments or questions? If not, everybody signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous. Motion carries. Item 3. Public hearing on the proposed final replat of Lot 1 in Block 2 of Chorgas Foster Subdivision Unit 2, and closing of the public hearing, possible action. Mr. Madera.
Yes, sir, Mr. Montalvo. So this next item, number 3, is very similar to number 2. It is separated only in distance for the truck route. This is for Lot 1 and Block 2. Chorgas.
For the record, we need to state what time we open.
Yes, I did.
Mr.
5:30,
Madera, just
ma'am.
for the record, we do need to state what time we're. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry, the echo is very strong here. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Montalvo.
You're welcome, Emil.
So what was the time, sir, Mr. Montalvo, when you opened the public hearing, just for the record?
5:30, sir. 5:30.
For this particular item, item 3?
Item number 3 now, sir.
Item, Mr.
Oh,
Montalvo.
for this particular item or for the meeting?
It's for each one. You have to state when you open and close it for each item.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
This was closed at 5:39, and we opened the second item, number 3, at 4:40.
540.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Imelda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this next item, number 3, is final replat approval, Lot 1, Block 2 of Chorgas Foster Subdivision Unit 2, also by Mountain View Engineering. This one is located at 2316 El Indio Highway. This has a similar acreage of 4.6 acres, 2 tracks. Also has the same, less than 5 acres, so it's going through the same variance. And there's not a lot to say different than the previous item. It has the It has similar characteristics. It's right next to each other, right next to the other one. It's also B3 General Business District. The recommendation of the planning department is to grant this request of the subdivision variance and proceed to final replat. And with the assumption that both of this one as well as the previous comply with all the provisions in the Code of Ordinances specific to Chapter 23. Does the board have any questions on this item?
Do you
Any
have a
questions?
map that you can share with us on the screen? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Montalvo, any questions? If not, maybe we can move to the,
Okay, do you have the
Any
map on the screen for the folks?
Yes,
Did you see? There was a question if they had a map.
Yes, the map is on the screen already.
Ah, okay. You want to make a question or that map or anything on the map, Ms. Sanchez?
no, I just wanted to identify the location.
Ah, okay.
Everything looks good.
All right. All right. Any other comments from members of the commission? Here none, then I'll close I open up the public hearing. For the audience, anyone that is online who wishes to address the commission may do so at this time in reference to replat of Block 1 and Block 2 of Chorgas Foster Subdivision Unit 2. Anyone in the audience or in the line may speak now, give your name, and also whether you're in favor or against that item. May do so now.
543.
There no comment. I will close the public hearing and go into possible action. What are your wishes of the members?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. That was done by who?
Correct. Rolando Hasso.
Paso? Paso, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
Escobar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, then everybody signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. And the time is 5:44. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Item number 4, we're gonna open. Do you need a time now, ma'am? Or after? Ms. Imelda? Do you need a time now, ma'am?
Yes, I need the time. Yes, please.
5:45.
Yes, Mr. Montalvo, please.
Yes. 5:45 p.m. Item number 4, public hearing the proposed request submitted by Dora A. Rodriguez for the rezoning of Block 13, Block 47, Fieldcrest Edition, 235 Russell Street, from R3 Duplex District to R3 A Apartment District. Close to the public hearing and possible action. Mr. Madera?
yes, Mr. Montalvo. This item is a request from Ms. Dora Rodriguez to rezone a parcel on 235 Brazos Street from R3 Duplex to R3A Apartment District. Sorry, there was a little bit of background there.
Mute.
Yeah, I could ask it. Anybody who's on the line, you could mute your line for now until the portion where you'd like to speak. That'd help clear up the line a little bit. Thank you. Okay, so this is lot 13 of block 47 in the Hillcrest Edition. Again, it's a request to rezone R3 duplex to R3A apartment district. The lot size is 8,100 square feet, which does meet the minimum requirements for the R3A district, which is 7,000 square feet. And that allows for up to a 4-unit apartment structure on that size, up on the 7,000 square foot lot. It is currently residential and is vacant at the moment. It does sit between Main Street and Garrison Street, about midway through the Brazos Street block. And the zoning, as I mentioned, for this is R3 duplex, as is a lot of the areas, a lot of the neighborhoods in that area. Obviously, the thoroughfares, Main Street and Garrison, have the B1 or B3 general or B3 business districts, and these are the R3 between those business districts. The planning department does recommend, the city does recommend the approval of this, being that there are a few other properties on this block within a few hundred feet that are also apartment structures. So this development would fit in with what's in the surrounding areas. Does the board have any questions regarding this item? Actually, or one other item I forgot to mention is the letters were sent out. Actually, I'm going to need to minimize this screen for just a second to view that. Uh, 19 letters were sent out regarding the Brazos Street zoning change. And two were received back in opposition. That concludes the presentation for this item. Are there any questions regarding the item?
What
How
was the
many-
opposition about?
Yeah.
What was the subject matter? Why were they opposed? If there's other apartments around.
The subject matter was that the owners felt that there's a large number of residents already in the area, and due to that, they've experienced issues with either vandalism or burglary. So they feel like another apartment would, they think, increase that. I did forward that information to the police chief, Chief Guajardo. He said that they had not been made aware of any major issues in the area, anything out of the ordinary, but they would keep a closer look at the area for a while to see, just to try to ease their concerns, but there was nothing out of the ordinary, he said. So that was why we moved forward with the recommendation to approve.
Okay.
One more question: How many letters were sent out, and how many were received in favor or against?
There were 19 sent out.
Okay.
And only 2 were received against.
Okay.
And they will have, I'm assuming, enough parking space for them to park within the premises, not, just outside on the street, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, that's correct. Any development does need to meet the minimum parking regulations, and the proposed, they submitted some plans and drawings that are part of your agenda packet. It does include all the required parking spaces on the property itself.
Okay.
They do intend to do a four-unit apartment. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
Yes, you.
Yes.
There's no public hearing on this one.
Yeah, the agenda does say public hearing and possible action.
Okay.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't know,
Mr. Montalvo, you want to open it up to the public?
Mr. Montalvo, was there any public request?
He might have been disconnected or something.
Did we lose him?
I don't know if he's connected. I don't see him on the list.
Are you there?
Mr. Montalvo, can you hear
There
us?
you are.
They're here.
I'm speaking, but I don't hear you respond.
Okay,
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I can hear you now.
Okay, let me close any more questions from the members, because I'm gonna go open
No.
the public hearing now.
Okay.
If no questions from the members, I'm gonna open up the public hearing at this time. Anyone that's on the line, on the phone line, can call in or ask a question for or against the rezoning of Lot 13, Block 47 of Hillcrest Edition, 235 Brazos Street, from R3 duplex district to R3 apartment district. Anybody in the audience that wishes to address the members may do so at this time, giving your name and whether you're for or against this item. Anyone in the audience or online, sorry. Anyone in the audience that online or in the audience wishes to address the commission may do so now at this time. Hearing none, then we'll close the public hearing portion. And what are the wishes of the commission?
I approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Sanchez, I'm sorry. And second?
I
Second.
second. Yeah.
Axel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions or concerns? I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me, but I had a question. Does this property be able to have a security fence around the perimeter, abutting properties or properties adjacent to this particular one? Mr. Madera?
Yes, sir. That is going to be part of the requirements for this development. A 6-foot high site obscuring fence to separate the surrounding residential from this new rezoned property. One other one is that the drainage be directed away from all abutting properties. So any storm runoff be directed towards the street and the storm drainage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Madera? If not, the chair entertains a motion for the approval of this item? It was already made, right, Mr. Sanchez and also second?
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Okay, all signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And we're ending this at 5:56, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr.
Right,
Montalvo.
Okay, we go to item number 5. Public hearing the proposed conditional use permit application submitted by Ernesto Gonzalez to allow for the establishment of parking lot business located at 1198 Avenue C. Mr. Madera.
Yes, sir. As you may recall, we brought a rezone request before the Planning and Zoning Board at a recent meeting, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board as well as the City Council. One of the stipulations, though, that the City Council did request was that that the applicant also go through the process of submitting a conditional use permit in order to specify that the lot would only be used for parking lot and not for building any vertical structures or any other buildings on that lot. So this is a result of that request from City Council. The applicant was more than willing to do whatever we requested, so he is going through that process. He has paid the fee for the conditional use permit, and this is the item we're bringing before you today. So it is at 1198 Avenue C. The request is for the conditional use permit, or CUP, for the establishment of a parking lot on the newly zoned B1 property, which was prior a R3 duplex property. This lot is 7,200 square feet in size. The surrounding is residential. It has been vacant for some time, and the owner, in order to try to ease some of the concerns with congestion in the area and some of the complaints of nearby neighbors about congestion in the area, he does want to convert this vacant property that he owns into a parking lot. So this conditional use permit would try to ease those congestion issues. Part of the requirements in doing this, he would need to, of course, comply with all the code of ordinances. There will need to be a 6-foot high site obscuring fence between this parking lot area and the two surrounding or abutting residential properties. Drainage will also need to be directed away from all abutting properties. And this conditional use permit is not transferable to any other properties. The planning department does recommend approval of this conditional use permit, as we are the ones that requested the applicant to go through this after he submitted his request to go through the rezoning of this lot. Are there any questions? This is at the corner of Avenue C and 4th Street, just off of Del Rio Boulevard. Are there any questions from the board regarding this item?
Can I answer questions from anyone?
No.
I have a question. If I remember correct, when the owner, when we had the previous meeting, he mentioned that he might include in this parking area or this parking lot a small improvement, maybe kind of like a storage or something. Is that been considered and within the regulations on the permit? Or I don't know if he changed his mind, or because he mentioned something about using it as a parking lot and probably for his vehicles, and maybe if they need to fix them there or something, he might be able to include. So the public understands that if in the future he adds just like a small storage or something, if it's still okay, you know, if it's gonna be approved.
Mr.
Yes.
Madera?
That's a good question, Miss Ma'am. That was brought up at the council meeting as part of this because we wanted to make sure to ease the concerns of the neighbors who there were a few people in opposition. Actually, that reminds me that we did send out letters for this conditional use permit as well. And we did receive 3 letters in opposition for this item. They are some of the same neighbors or residents that submitted an opposition during the rezone process. But this particular conditional use permit specifies that it will be used specifically for parking only and no vertical structures, no sheds or storage, or I think they might mention the possibility of kind of a mini shop or being able to air up tires or things of that nature. So we did discuss that with council, and in their decision to approve, it was with the condition that it would be only parking and nothing else, not a storage or any other vertical structures.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board? Hearing none, then I'll go into opening up anyone in the online that wishes to address this item for or against. Please give us your name and whether you're for or against. And I'll repeat this again. Anyone in the audience or online that wishes to address this item in reference to the conditional use permit for a parking lot located 1198 Avenue C, may speak now, for or against, giving us your name, please. Hearing none, then I'll bring it back to the members. What are your wishes?
I approve.
Second.
Approved by Salinas. Do you hear second?
Second. Yes, sir. Second.
Escobar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have one question for Mr. Madera. Is there going to be that piece of property going to be covered with paving or concrete, rather, or asphalt?
That's a good question, sir. At this point, they're just getting through the process of the rezone and what the lot can be used for. At the time that they submit permit applications for construction, we would then see their design and what they have specifically in mind, which will need to comply with all the ordinances. So it would need to be concrete or asphalt, which are the required surfaces for that. But at this point, we're not sure what they'll be submitting.
Okay. That would include also a number of spaces and also about lighting, area lighting in that particular area, need be, right?
That's correct. We would see all that in their design layout before approval.
Okay. If there's any other questions for Mr. Madera, then close the public hearing. And we already have a motion by Ms. Salinas and Mr. Escobar second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. And the time is 6:05, ma'am. 6:05.
Thank you.
Item number 6. Item number 6. Public hearing on the proposed conditional use permit application submitted by Marta Ramos Medina to allow for the establishment of a home child daycare business located at 2078 La Jolla. Mr. Madera.
Yes, sir.
And the time is 6:05.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this item, item number 6, this is our final public hearing of the evening, is a request by Ms. Marta Ramos Medina at 2078 La Jolla Street in order to request a conditional use permit to allow for a home daycare business at the property. The business was already in operation at the time that the planning department was made aware of it because of a sign they had on the front of the property. And so they're now going through the process to legitimize and get the proper permitting through us that is required. They do have the owner does have the state permit for a daycare license, a license, not a permit, that is required for that. So they're just going through the process to get what they need through the city to be legally operating. It is a residential home on La Jolla Street. It's an R2 zone area. This property is 7,968 square feet. The recommendation from the planning department is to go ahead and approve this request, this conditional use permit, being that they are in compliance, or with the assumption that they will be in compliance with all the code of ordinances of the city of Eagle Pass. They do have certain restrictions, being that it is a home daycare. The number of children must be limited to 12 or under. The hours of operation shall be limited from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. They need to minimize on-street parking by establishing parent drop-off space and limiting to 5-minute drop-offs. And signage, exterior signage can be only allowed for one, providing that the sign be unlighted and not exceed 6 feet in area. Non-resident workers are not permitted to be employed in the home daycare, meaning the people who are employed there need to be those who reside there. And this conditional use permit is not transferable to other areas. Does the board have any questions regarding this item?
Were there any letters submitted?
We did not receive any letters on this one. I did receive a phone call today from a person who wanted to submit a letter in favor of the approval. I did not get to it in time. I'm not sure if they may be on the line. I provided them with the call-in number.
Mr. Rivera, I did receive an email, and this is from Mr. and Mrs. Valdez. They reside at 2953 Tahoe Drive, and this is a letter in favor. And they did submit a statement that I'm going to go ahead and read because they did ask me to read the letter, and I'll go ahead and read it. This letter is in reference to the public hearing scheduled for April 9, 2020, conducted by the City of Eagle Pass Planning and Zoning Commission for the purpose of the conditional use permit application submitted by Marta Ramos Medina to allow for the establishment of a home child daycare business located at 2078 La Jolla Street. As a property owner in that neighborhood, I wanted to express that I am in favor of Mrs. Ramos establishing her home business. I can identify myself with her business because I first started my home business right across the street from where she resides. I see the passion she has for servicing the children of our community and the need our community has for regulated child care services. I recall sitting through our own public hearing in 2010 for seeing advocacy for our home established daycare to have the opportunity to thrive regardless of the opposition we were facing from a few neighbors. Fast forward 10 years after our humble beginnings, we are now owners of an establishment local daycare center located at North Veterans Boulevard, servicing over 60 local families and established employment opportunities for several members of our community, as well as partnering with local nonprofits to extend advocacy programs for students with disabilities. The growth we had would have never been possible if we had not been able to pursue our dreams, and given the opposition we faced at that time when we first started from home. I am a firm believer that we need to embrace a culture for opportunities for every single member of our community and not a select few. Although I no longer reside in said neighborhood where Ms. Ramos is established, I am still a property owner and a landlord of the house right across from hers. My only request is that the commission establishes restrictions in which there is a way to avoid traffic or parking congestions that may arise since there is another home-based daycare located next to my property aside from Mrs. Ramos and may affect my current tenants from having limited parking conditions or obstructed mailboxes. Aside from the request, Mrs. Ramos has my unconditional support and the hopes her permit is granted through this commission. Thank you, Mrs. Valdez. And she-
Okay, any further comment?
Did you receive any other letters from of concerns from other neighbors or not?
Mr. Madera?
No, we did not receive anything else, and that was those were the residents who reached out earlier that
Okay.
mentioned they wanted to make their comments known. So that was the only one that I was aware that reached out to us.
Okay. Well, I'm confident
Okay.
that they'll follow the compliance and hopefully in the future, if they, as long as they do not interfere with the traffic and hopefully in the future, they might become, commercial business in the future. It's a good start. So I wish them the best of success.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up now for the public audience. They're online or present. Anybody wishes to address this item in reference to Marta Ramos to allow her to have a home child daycare business located at 2078 La Jolla Street. Anyone that wishes to do so may do so now with your name, whether you're for or against. Anyone that is on the line may do so now. Hearing none, then I'm gonna close this portion of the public hearing, being 6:13. What are the wishes of the members?
I move to approve the conditional use or I move to approve.
The motion by Escobar, second by Salinas, Ms. Sanchez.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
approve.
Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, then everybody signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay. New business. Consideration and possible action on the preliminary plat of MH Group subdivision. Mr. Madera.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you hear me? Yeah.
This next item, item number 7, is the applicant is Dirksen Engineering. The location of the property in question is off of Highway 57, across from the Ancita Automobile Dealership. It is a 26.29 acre tract. It's a commercial property that's currently used as such. And they are going through the process of legitimizing this by platting the area. This is a preliminary plat approval request to subdivide the approximately 26.29 acre tract into one industrial lot. And they do have plans for further developing and putting an additional warehouse structure on the property. I did mention the areas off of Highway 57. So you could see, those of you who are on the GoToMeeting, you could see the triangular shaped property, which belongs to this MH Group. And they are, again, across from the Ancita dealership and next to a Salem lease off of Highway 57. The planning and zoning recommendation is to grant this preliminary plat approval, subject to their compliance with the City of Eagle Pass Code of Ordinances. Are there any questions on this particular item?
Comments, questions from the members?
No.
Negative.
Okay, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Picasso,
Second.
That's correct.
second by
Second.
Approve.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 8, consideration and possible action on the final plat of Puente subdivision. Mr. Madera.
This item is being submitted by TEC Services. The property location is 2260 Del Rio Boulevard. It's a 0.62 acre tract of land. It is currently vacant. It has been vacant for some time, and they're requesting a final plat approval to subdivide this 0.62 acre tract into one commercial lot, which would be zoned as B3. They are also requesting the variance to plat a property of less than 5 acres, since it was conveyed prior to 1984. The zoning of which, being on the thoroughfare of Del Rio Boulevard, is commercial. There's a photo here for those of you who can see the GoToMeeting currently vacant property. It is about it's about four property locations away from the corner of Veterans and Del Rio Boulevard. And the intent, it's not definite at this point. It's just they're seeking strictly to plat the property, but their proposed or future plans may include a apartment complex. The planning department does recommend granting this variance and approval of their request with the assumption that they will be in compliance with all Code of Ordinances requirements. There is a pending question from our engineer, city engineer, Ms. Vanessa Rosales Herrera, regarding storm drainage runoff, and that may be something pending response from the engineering firm TEC Services. Up to now, the response we received is that the platting may not require that at this point, at the time of construction, the contractor or developer at that point, when they decide to build, whether it be apartments or whatever they may choose at the time, would then need to submit those drainage plans, which was maybe a valid point by them. So we're just pending that particular item between our engineers and their engineers to clarify. But other than that, this is something that the planning department is recommending approval of. Are there any questions from the board?
We can't wait for our engineering response. We have to approve it today.
It is a fairly. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that it is not a very significant item for the platting purposes, which what we're doing today. It would be very significant once construction is beginning. So it is possible, Mr. Hassel, to hold off for now. The developer and the engineer have been pending on this item for some time, as we didn't meet the prior meeting. So if possible, I would recommend we don't hold off any further. But I
Okay.
would certainly understand your viewpoint if you did prefer to wait for the engineers to come to that agreement.
So could we do something, for example, approve the final plat subject to the engineering or the engineer's opinion regarding runoff, drainage, etc.?
That sounds like a good idea. Ms. Imelda, can you confirm that?
Yes, of course. I can add that to the motion.
That would be my motion to approve, but subject to the engineers providing approval regarding runoff, drainage, and all of the requirements.
Motion by Mr. Hassel, do I hear a second?
Excuse me, this is Aaron Lipson from Tech Services. Can I speak real quick?
Sorry, who is this?
This is Aaron Lipson from Tech Services, the engineer of this project.
Huh?
This project right now. Go ahead.
Let me get a second on this one, mister, and then we will let you speak. So here a second. It's on 1 second, Mr. Hassel, motion. I didn't hear.
Again,
So, Bob, did you second?
yes, sir, second.
Okay. Okay, any further comments or you had a comment for DEC?
Yes, I had a comment. I just wanted to clarify. This was approved on a conditional basis, or can you explain?
Uh-huh.
Was this item approved? 'Cause I didn't quite understand what you just said right now.
Okay, the motion was to approve the item, Fuentes subdivision with the subject to the engineer's report.
Well, what engineer? The city
That was the
engineer or the engineering firm of this plat?
Mr. Madera, was it Ms. Vanessa or was it from the firm, engineering firm?
The question was posed by Ms. Vanessa, our city engineer. So my interpretation of our condition was she comfortable with the response from the engineer of record for the project, then it would have full approval.
That would be correct. That's the way my motion is structured.
Right.
And that's
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next item, number 9, consideration and possible action on the preliminary plat of the MHDC medical subdivision. Mr. Madera.
Thank you, Mr. Montalvo. This is another item that Tech Services is the applicant for. This is a commercial property at the end of Bob Rogers Drive and Foster Maldonado Boulevard. It's a 12.94 acre tract of land that will be, the request is for a preliminary plat approval to subdivide the tract into one 10-acre commercial lot, and also includes a 2.93 acre dedication, a roadway, right-of-way dedication for roadway that would connect Bob Rogers Drive to Foster Maldonado Boulevard. That would then be dedicated to the City of Eagle Pass at final plat recordation. So this is could be a very positive development for that particular area, the hospital and hospital district, as it would provide connectivity from those two roads, Bob Rogers Drive and Foster Maldonado, which currently end once you get to the rear portion area kind of near the hospital district. So The recommendation from the planning department would be to approve this preliminary plat approval. Again, being that with the requirement that they meet all the City of Eagle Pass Code of Ordinances. Let me see. So for those of you on the call, here's an image of the 10-acre tract for this particular development. Does the board have any questions on this item?
Any comments from the members or questions? Hearing none, then the chair takes a motion for the approval.
I move to approve.
I second that.
Second by Ms. Sanchez. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. For 10, consideration and possible action on the preliminary plat of the Abuelita Acre Ranch subdivision. Mr. Madera.
Yes, sir. This item is, the applicant for this item is Amistad Consulting Services. The location is off of Mela Garcia Road, which is in the Hopedale area off of Del Rio Highway. It's a 2.86 acre tract of land. And the request here is a preliminary plat approval to subdivide that 2.86 tract of land into one residential lot, including a sidewalk waiver and including a variance to plat a property less than 5 acres in size, which was conveyed prior to 1984. The reason for the sidewalk waivers being outside of city limits, there are no other sidewalks in the vicinity, so there would be no connectivity to anything if a sidewalk was put into place. And the recommendation from the department is to, here's a map for those of you who can view the meeting. The recommendation is to approve, to grant this preliminary plat approval. The property at the time of construction, the fire marshal did require currently it's a vacant piece of property. At the time of development or construction, there will require a fire suppression system, which the most economical recommendation would be a water tank that the fire department could utilize to put out a fire if necessary. And the reason this came about was the applicants are seeking to connect to the City of Eagle Pass water system, which is directly behind the property, running along the irrigation canal. And part of the requirements that Waterworks has for water hookups or connections is that the lot is platted. So that's the request that the applicant, or that's the reason for this request, which we are in agreement with the approval for. Does the board have any questions regarding this item?
Any comments from members of the commission? Hearing none, then I'll call for the vote. I'll hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
That was Mr. Hassel.
Second.
Correct.
Approve.
Second, do I hear a second? Is Mr. Escobar? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item number 11, consideration and possible action on the preliminary plat of the Martinez Ranch subdivision. Mr. Madera.
For our final item of the evening, it's very similar to the prior item, number 10. The owner has these same two properties that are within a very close proximity to each other. This is also being presented by Amistad Consulting Services. This is a 3.09 acre tract of land, And the request is the same, preliminary plat approval to subdivide the acreage into one residential lot, including the sidewalk waiver and variance to plat a property less than 5 acres in size. This particular property is developed. It does have an existing home that the owner has lived for many years. And again, the same purpose is to be able to get the water connection, so they're going through the process. So basically everything I described in the prior one is applicable to this one as well. And again, we as the planning department do concur and agree with the approval of this, assuming that they do comply with all code of ordinances of the City of Eagle Pass. Any questions on this item?
No question.
No questions. The chair takes a motion for the approval of the item.
So moved.
Pat? Motion.
Yes, I made the motion.
Also, second. Do I hear a second?
Ms.
Do I hear a
Sanchez.
second? Sanchez?
Ms.
Thank you.
Everybody signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second by
I
Mr.
second.
Hassel, and second by Ms. Sanchez. And it's at 5:30. 6:30, I'm sorry. 6:32, just in case. 6:32 p.m. Melda.
I got it. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Be safe.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Healthy.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.